Hello. Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. We have just been running around all over the internet this morning trying to get this link live for you to join us for the Next.js on Netlify, a powerful combination webinar event that's happening right now in this moment. And we're just so glad that you made it, that you're here. We're going to give people a few minutes to kind of file in since email invites are still going out and Twitter is ablaze with new information about where to meet us. I'm so glad to see y'all in chat. Yes, I think it's been a stressful morning for a lot of folks, but we're just hoping to have a little bit of lightness and joy and curiosity here together as we learn about Next.js this morning. So thanks for being with us. While you're getting acclimated, I just want to remind everybody of our event code of conduct. It is important that we treat each other with respect. We're all here online together using the chat. It allows us to engage, but please do just watch your P's and Q's, take care of each other, be kind. There's a lot going on in the world right now. So just give an extra bit of kindness and grace to everybody as you're speaking. And if you need a link, I've posted it in the chat. You can check it out and kind of read through that as we are, making sure everybody is online. So I'm trying to remember if there are any other items that I need to cover for us before we bring Salma into the room. I think that the last thing that you need to know, so this event should be recorded. So if you have to move on to other things, you have a meeting you're going to join, you have to go pick up your kids from school, whatever's happening in your world, this will be recorded and we'll have this to share with you after the event. So don't feel like you have to be online the whole time. Or paying attention the whole time. We'll get a link out to you. The other thing is we will have questions and answers at the end. So I believe there's a place in welcome where you can ask a question. I will be reviewing those and I'll do my best to relay your questions to Salma. So along the way, if something pops in your mind, you want more information, we'll do our best to answer it here today. And then if it's something that we need to do our research and get back to you later, I'll help make sure that happens too. So yes. Awesome. I think that's all of the housekeeping items that I need to share. Is there any? Yep, here we go. Salma's coming online. Hi,
Hi,
Salma. You
everybody.
made it.
Hi, Melanie. Good time zone to everybody. Welcome in.
Fantastic. I'm just realizing, Salma, I think the last time we did an event like this together was like back in August, like months ago. Do you remember?
I remember it was such a privilege to be invited to Netlify to talk about Next.js. And now here I am working at Netlify talking about Next.js.
Yep, the world has changed so much. And it's funny. I am a Next.js newbie, so like I've built Gatsby sites or 11D sites before. I think my first Jamstack site was like a Jekyll application, actually. But even
Same.
just this morning, the Netlify team released this brand new pajamas template last Friday. It's like a blog starter. So in the time that we were trying to get all the links fixed for the event, I just deployed the blog starter. I managed to like change the posts and change some of the colors, and it's an interesting experience how quickly you can get a Next.js app online with Netlify. I know that was one of the things we talked about before. It was kind of the time to wow, or what would you call it, like the time to first magic moment.
Time to just joyful life, right? Just time to what's it? Time to hello world. Just time to
Yes,
live in your
time to
life.
hello world. That's exactly what I was looking for. Um, so it really was like dangerously fast. But I know what we're going to be talking about today is not really Next.js, particularly for users like myself who are barely tinkering. But we know that Next.js is one of the fastest frameworks. It's growing like wildfire. It's maturing. So it used to be something maybe people were tinkering with on their side projects, and now everyone's having to use this at work and building large scale applications, e-commerce sites, big production revenue generating web applications with Next.js at scale, right? So I think you're going to be giving us a little preview of some of like the more powerful features of the Next.js app. Is that what we can expect today?
Yeah, so what I'm going to be going through is essentially how you can leverage the flexibility of the rendering models in Next.js to serve different parts of your application, your websites, and your businesses. There are many different ways you can do things with Next.js, and I think that's part of its power. And it doesn't just do one thing, it does quite a few things pretty well. And it's just really interesting to see how it's grown from the initial static site generator built around React to a powerful framework that really lets you move faster and, like you say, just get stuff online fast and just go.
Fantastic. Yeah, just go and just keep building on top of that too. All right. Well, then enough. Let's. I don't need to be on the mic any longer than I have to be today. Let's let you go ahead and get into the content that you have prepared, and I will hand things over to you.
Thank you. Okay, so if you have never met me before, hello, I'm Salma, and I am a staff developer experience engineer at Netlify, and I'm a Next.js enthusiast. I've been building with Next.js pretty extensively for the last year, but also before that, before I moved into developer relations, I was a tech lead and I was leading projects built with Next.js on the front end as well. And it's changed a lot since I was building with it at work. So it's really interesting to still be able to talk about this and talk about how it can be great for you. So if you want to catch up with me on the internet, if you've seen me on before on the internet, you'll know me as White Panther or White P4N3R if you use a screen reader. So you can find me on Twitter to ask me questions whenever you might have them. Okay, so what's in store for you today? I did want to give a bit of a background on kind of how we got here and how things evolved over the last 12 years. So I am going to talk about what is the Jamstack in 2022. We do a lot of work around the Jamstack at Netlify. We came out of the Jamstack and hosting static sites in that kind of way, in that philosophy. So let's look at what it means today. And does Next.js make Jamstack sites? We're going to think about that question. And is Next.js a good fit for Netlify? I think you probably know the answer to that anyway. But first of all, I just want to get a little bit of a feel for who I'm talking to today. So we're going to start off with a poll. And I want to know, first of all, are you currently building with Next.js? That is the first poll question we're going to ask. And so we should have a poll open for you to answer very, very shortly. Here we go. So if you head over into the polls tab next to the chat tab, and you can click on what you're doing. Can I click on that yet? No, I can't click. Okay, cool. Oh, lots of people haven't started yet. Interesting. I don't even actually know what the next question is. So I think this is really nice insight into actually who I'm talking to. What's the next question? Okay, what type of site or application are you building or looking to build with Next.js? And this will help me kind of hopefully tailor what I talk to you about as well. Corporate site or marketing site, e-commerce, user or a software as a service app, a global campaign, doc site or a personal site. Lots of corporate sites, lots of personal sites, e-commerce. It's a big one, e-commerce, especially since we've all gone online in the pandemic. Interesting. And we had one final poll question, didn't we? I'm sorry, I don't know what that is again. Does your organization currently have an initiative to adopt Next.js? Yes, we've already adopted it. Yes, I need to select the platform. No current initiative or not applicable. Okay, mainly people have already adopted it so far. No current initiative, need to select the platform. Okay, so a real mix of people in the room today. So hopefully I can pitch this correctly. So thank you very, very much for answering those polls. And let's get back to the first question of this little thing. What is the Jamstack in 2022? Now I want to go through a very, very brief history of how this all started. And I think it's really interesting. In 2010, developers were already starting to try and solve the problem that front-end developers were experiencing, where their work was so tightly coupled to that of a back-end developer. Back in the day, everyone was working in these big monolithic applications. Front-end teams were blocked by back-end teams, and there was a lot of friction between the two. And so front-end developers needed a solution to be able to work independently and go faster. So in 2010, AngularJS and Backbone.js, what we might think of the first JavaScript frameworks, were both released within a week of each other in October 2010. And this is what started leading the way for frameworks such as Next.js. Fast forward a few years from 2010, and we come to 2013 when Jekyll was released. And this was probably the most popular static site generator at the time. Now, contrary to popular belief, Jekyll was written in Ruby, and it wasn't written in JavaScript that we know a lot of front-end static generation frameworks are built in now. And so what really Jekyll was an enabler to build static assets at build time from whatever way, using data from APIs, and then build them all up, bundle them up, and serve them statically from a CDN. Fast forward now to 2022, and we have over 330 static site frameworks in the ecosystem. Not necessarily just built with JavaScript, built with Go, Ruby, and JavaScript. And the ecosystem is rich with so many different types of solutions to build so many different types of products. So the Jamstack got its name from the combination of using JavaScript to call out to APIs at build time and generate markup and serve those assets statically from a CDN. But at some point along the way, things started to become a little bit more innovative, and we enter the concept of serverless. Serverless functions, lambdas, basically backends that were spun up when you needed them without having to manage that server or that infrastructure. And with serverless, the possibilities became almost endless. And now what's happened is the concept of serverless and that kind of managed backend managed by a hosting platform or extra infrastructure has now become like part and parcel of front-end frameworks and building on the Jamstack. But what has actually come to the fore of discussions in this space is, are we using too much JavaScript? Has it become too centered on JavaScript? And do we need to think of, do we need to go back to basics with the Jamstack and think about serving static assets from a CDN rather than sending so much JavaScript to the client? So it's quite an interesting concept that new frameworks such as Astro and SvelteKit are trying to solve. So I'll come back to this question. What is the Jamstack in 2022? So really, it hasn't changed from its inception, but we're trying to, at Netlify, bring it back to basics and think of it about pre-generated assets, which are highly portable and may be served from a wide variety of hosting platforms, elevated by modern tooling. The Jamstack isn't necessarily about the frameworks you're using, but it is the philosophy you apply to your architecture. So moving on from that, does Next.js make static Jamstack sites? And the answer is yes. And Next.js I would think of as an enabler for the Jamstack approach. Out of the box, you get the Jamstack philosophies and principles of delivering static assets to your users from a CDN. You get so much more with Next.js as well, and that's what we're going to go through. And so whereas serverless entered and made the possibilities endless, the way Next.js, in my opinion, has coupled that Jamstack philosophy with that elevated modern build tooling really gives you a lot of good stuff. So is Next.js a Jamstack site? Yes, it is, because from Jamstack 101, you get static pre-rendering in Next.js out of the box. If you want to fetch data at build time, you can use get static props in your Next.js pages. And what this does is it at build time is a function to call out to your APIs. You can write the code to bundle it up, pass that through to your home component, your page component, and render that data served statically. At the end of this presentation, I'm going to give you a link to an example project that demonstrates all of these features. Here's a little look into it. I'm using the Pokemon API because it was free, didn't require any authentication. And this is a page static route that uses get static props to fetch the data for this page at build time. It's just getting me 9 Pokemon names to display on a page. Nothing's happening client side. Everything is pre-rendered. the code for fetching this data in Next.js and pre-rendering it out to a page is actually pretty lightweight. You use get static props, which is async, to fetch the data from your API. You bundle it up however you want, you pass it through to your page component, and you do whatever you want with it. And Next.js deals with that for you when your visitors view your page. If you wanted a more realistic option, realistic example for what you might use this for is that if you're building an e-commerce site, you might use get static props to fetch a product list from your CMS at build time, and then without having to render that page on a server at request time, it just gets delivered from a CDN to your users. What also I love, and when I first discovered this, I was blown away, that get static paths in Next.js actually allows you to pre-render any number of pages dynamically with dynamic routes. And you do this, for example, by creating, so in my app, I've created a dynamic route for every single Pokemon that I showed on the Pokemon grid page. Here's one of them, here's the other one. And these 2 pages and the rest of them are generated with just one little block of code. Using get static paths, you fetch all your data, you map that into a result that provides a parameter to the get static props function. And then that parameter is used to power the data fetching in that to get me the specific data for that specific Pokemon. So with just these 33 lines of code, you can create as many routes as you want dynamically that are built at build time and pre-rendered into static assets. As an example, in the real world, you can generate n product pages at build time. If you've got thousands and thousands and thousands, it doesn't matter. Next.js will do that for you with just those few lines of code. But there is more. So before the Jamstack came to be a thing, everyone was making server-side requests, and the backend would generate that HTML, send it back to the browser, and that's how people would view the internet. There is this option in Next.js to use get server-side prop to do that very thing. So already we're branching out into that flexible rendering model where it's static first, but if you need to generate something on the server for whatever reason, with Next.js, you can. Here's a page in my example app where I'm using a parameter on the URL to generate the name after the welcome on this page. So we've got welcome Phil, welcome Kenny. So this page is using get server-side props to show dynamic data at request time, and it allows you to add more dynamicism to your application without having to make those requests on the client and show loading spinners for something like somebody's name. Again, tiny bit of code using get server-side props. You use the context to get the query parameter, and then you return that to the page component. A real-life example for this could be for personalization for logged-in users. If you wanted to personalize their experience and make sure they're getting what they need without having to obviously pre-render every single user's information into a static route, because that would be a breach of security anyway. So we've got get static props, get static paths, get server-side props, and there's still more. And this is one of my favorite things about Next.js because it kind of combines the two whilst keeping the Jamstack static asset philosophy alive. It's incremental static regeneration. And now on Netlify, we have full support for ISR in Next.js now. And you might use this for a different type of data that I'll get to in a minute. Now, incremental static regeneration is based on a cache invalidation policy called stale while revalidate. And how it works is that when somebody visits your page, in the background, Next.js is validating whether the data on that page is still in date and valid. If it is, then it doesn't do anything. If the data has changed, a serverless function in the background via Netlify or whatever hosting platform you're on will rebuild that single page only and not the whole website. And then it will serve that updated page to the next person who visits. So I use this on the example website for the price of Bitcoin. I'm just using the Bitcoin API to get the prices. when I visit that page, Next.js in the background is checking if the Bitcoin price is still the same. It usually obviously changes very, very frequently. And so the next time I visit that page, I will see an updated data, but it's not on the client side. It's not generated by a client side request. It's built statically in the background, and it's delivered as a static asset. You add one tiny bit of code to initiate ISR in Next.js inside get static props. You just add this revalidate property on the return, and you can choose how many seconds you would like Next to have in between validating that data or not. Now, ISR does come with a caveat. You don't want to use this for every single bit of data on your site, even though it sounds quite exciting for your site to be updating continuously in the background and being served statically. I would always recommend that you use ISR for data that changes, but it's not entirely important if it's out of date or not. Say, for example, if you're building an e-commerce site and it's absolutely critical that your customers know the stock levels of an item at any one time, you probably wouldn't use ISR for that because the stock levels might get quite out of date and not build in time for the next customer to have a look at that page. So be very careful when you use ISR, but I think it's a really powerful tool to not have to build your whole site in one go when data is always changing. So getting on to the good part that I like to talk about, is Netlify a good fit for Next.js? For me, it's a resounding yes. I believe that the developer experience that you get from Next.js and the developer experience that you get from Netlify are really go hand in hand to create a great developer experience and actually a great end user experience as well. And I like to think of it as DX++. Now, I can't touch on all of these things I'm about to talk about because each one of these things will probably need a webinar in themselves, but some of the other things that you get in terms of enhanced developer experience with Next.js are things like page-based routing, hot reloading as standard, CSS modules as standard, TypeScript support, client and server environment variables, things like Next Link, head and router. You have preview mode built into Next.js. So if you are working with a content team and instead of having to push static builds to a deploy branch to preview content, you can actually do this on the server on the fly. The flexible rendering modes that we talked about before, and so much more. Now, I'm not going to unpack all these features today, but we've got a lot of content on the Netlify blog on how to use these Next.js features on Netlify. But the most important thing is that all of these great features of Next.js are supported on Netlify. Plus, you get all the Netlify bells and whistles that I want to talk to you about now. So, in Netlify, we have the plugin ecosystem, which we can use to really enhance the developer experience and actually the end product that you create on Netlify. So when you deploy a Next.js site, we provide native support for Next.js out of the box. And behind the scenes, we're actually auto-detecting your framework and using our plugin architecture for this. So you don't need to install anything else manually when you deploy a Next.js site to Netlify. But we're always updating this behind the scenes to support the latest features. And as Next.js keeps evolving, we make sure the support is there. You can update this manually and you can lock these plugins to a certain version. So we keep you in control of what version you want to use. So in case any breaking changes might happen, which they don't, but you're in control of the plugin you use, but we give it to you automatically for free. If you actually go to the Netlify plugin area, you'll actually be able to find a bucket load of different types of plugins that give you information, Lighthouse information, Core Web Vitals. We've actually got a new plugin built that was released this week from New Relic for real-time user monitoring, and so many different community contributed plugins as well to help enhance the developer experience. Plugin installation can be UI-based or file-based as well. And if you're working in a team where infrastructure as code is important, we let you control your plugins and lock down the versions with a Netlify TOML file. And there's lots of other different types of configurations available in that as well. I'm going to give my voice a little break, and I'm going to just show you a tiny little video that I made that shows you how to upgrade the Next.js plugin to the latest one in just 3 clicks in the Netlify UI. To update your Netlify Next.js plugin in just 3 clicks, head on over to your site in the Netlify UI and click on the Plugins tab. Go down to your plugins list, notice there is an update available, click to the right on Change Version. Check the version you want to switch to. Let's go for the latest release. Let's click on Change Version again, and on the next deploy, you're done. Thank you. Okay, so now I've had a little break. The next feature I want to talk to you about is build prioritization. Now, on any engineering team, some deployments are more urgent than others. And so using Netlify, you have the ability to prioritize any enqueued build to be next in line when the build capacity opens up. If you click the Build Next button that you see underneath Jam Java there, that will bring that build to the front of the queue and allow it to begin as soon as build capacity is available. So especially if you host a variety of different repositories and projects on Netlify, you can choose what you build when. On the same subject of deploys, we also have locked deploys. So locked deploys give you the ability of pinning a site to the latest published deploy. And new deploys won't be published to the main site, although Netlify will still build them, and they'll be ready for whenever you want to promote them to production. So this is great if you want to enforce a code freeze, but keep the development pipeline flowing. And it's really valuable for coordinated launches and big bang releases where you can launch everything at the click of the button, but not hold up that development workflow. Next, log inspection. Now, when we're talking about ISR and incremental static regeneration, rebuilding that page and revalidating that data in the background, this is one of the things that I love to nerdily look at in the logs. You'll see here, when ISR is working, it shows you what's being validated, what page data is being checked. And I just think this is a really, really nice way to give your developers peace of mind that what they've built is actually happening behind the scenes. Next, I want to talk about deploy notifications. So anytime one of these things happens, when a deploy preview fails or starts or succeeds or anything like that, you can actually set up notifications to go out to email addresses. And also you can use some of our other integrations, such as with Slack and outgoing webhooks and other things. Whatever your business needs are, you can use our platform to notify people when you need. I think that's a really nice addition to, again, give you peace of mind and know when things are happening. Now, one of my favorite features that's recently come to the fore is collaborative deploy previews. Now, especially in this time that we're all working remotely, you can collaborate around a predictable shareable URL each time you create a deploy preview on Netlify via a pull request. So when you open up this URL that you can send anywhere, it's live on the internet, you can inspect the logs, you can take screenshots, record things, share with people and discuss. And it's kind of like an inbuilt QA tool on every deploy preview that you have. Here you can comment on the GitHub pull request if it's linked up to GitHub. And you can even open up a QR code to scan to test your project on devices. I think that's a really, really powerful tool for QA engineers who are testing on multiple devices as well. And we have loads of integrations, including Trello and Jira. And I think it's a really powerful tool for being able to demo products and get feedback from clients and stakeholders efficiently without having to go and have a meeting or do a screen share on Zoom. Easy rollbacks as well. So rollbacks are undo buttons for your deployment. So one of the great things about the Jamstack is the concept of immutable deploys. So every deploy that you push to Netlify, every pull request, deploy preview, and you can even set up branch deploys for separate branches, each one of those is an immutable deploy. And in one click, you can go back to that deploy and deploy that back to production. This you might need this if you accidentally pushed a bug to production or you take back some content or design changes. They're basically undo buttons. So you can go into your list of deploys and then you just click publish deploy on whatever deploy you want, and that's automatically promoted to production and released. Netlify Forms. So one of the things as a front-end developer, that I've experienced is that as soon as you need to put a form on a site, that's the time where you think, it's a stumbling block. I need to have a backend now. I need a server now. With Netlify Forms, you don't need that. So if you enable Netlify Forms on a site, all you need to do is build an HTML form on your front end, add the Netlify attribute to your form, and bam, you have a form that works on your site with no backend. We take care of all of that for you. We've actually got a blog post that was written that's still pretty valid, even though it was 2 years ago, about adding a Netlify powered contact form to your Next.js site. So for those of you who are watching the recording or have keen eyes and want to go to that now, you can go to that short link, ntl.fyi/netlify-forms/Next.js, to take you to that blog post to show you how forms integrate with Next.js on Netlify. And yes, it is as simple as putting an HTML form on a page. Another thing that front-end developers or any developer would normally think about needing a backend and a managed server is authentication. And we do all of that for you with Netlify Identity. You get a full suite of authentication functionality without needing a managed backend, where you can manage and authenticate users on your sites without requiring them to be users of Netlify or any other service. And you can use Netlify Identity for things such as gated content and site administration and anything your heart desires. So next, one of the things that we talk about on the Jamstack is, at the moment in 2022, is trying to limit the amount of JavaScript on your page. And for any of you who have used Google Analytics, you might even notice that Google Lighthouse kind of penalizes you for including that Google Analytics script in the head of your page. Netlify also has an analytics service that is pretty cool without needing any JavaScript. It gives you page views and visitors. It gives you a view into how your traffic is tracking, the locations of where your visitors are coming from. It gives you your top pages. And what I love also is the top pages not found, which also allows you to inspect how maybe bots and crawlers are looking at your site, or it might help you discover any errors on your site. And the top referral sources and bandwidth monitoring as well. So I think this is a really nice alternative that actually is so lightweight, and you don't need to compromise your front end for analytics. Any developer that's nerdy like me loves a good CLI, and with a Netlify tool, you can dev, build, and deploy all on the command line without even going to your browser. One of my favorite things that I want to call out about the Netlify CLI is that, have you ever been or had a new developer on your team, and in your projects, you have a bazillion environment variables and sensitive keys and sensitive information, and you need to find a way to get all of those keys to a developer in order for them to be unblocked and start building? When you use Netlify Dev, all of your environment variables are automatically injected into your local development environment, so you never have to have this problem again. And I think this is one of my favorite things about the CLI. So I'm going to give myself another little talking break, and I'm going to show you another video about how easy it is to put a plain HTML Jamstack site onto Netlify using the CLI from scratch. You how easy it is to put a new site live on the internet with the Netlify CLI. I have a plain HTML and CSS website that I want to put on the internet for everyone to see. I'm going to run NTL init so Netlify can initialize a new site for me on my account. I'm going to choose a really cool site name for my really cool website and press enter, and Netlify is going to do all the work for me. I'm going to deploy it straight to prod because I can with the command NTL deploy -- prod. Netlify is going to do its work. The publish directory is going to be dot because it's just a plain HTML file, and now it's live. I can run NTL open site and it is live on the internet for everyone to see. And that, my friends, is how you can code faster with the Netlify CLI. Happy coding. How easy it is to put a new site live on the internet with the Netlify CLI. And you might have seen that last week we launched Netlify Graph in beta. Now, Netlify Graph is a GraphQL powered experience designed to help developers build interactive and connected web applications faster. So with Netlify Graph, your developers can start using APIs without spending all that time writing all the connected bootstrap code and learning every API's unique structure. and then composing endless amounts of endpoints to get data from those various APIs into your app. These are the current integrations we have. It's still in beta, it's still being developed, but you can try it now in Netlify Labs. During our launch last week, we demoed Netlify Graph with Next.js, and Netlify Graph is built directly to serve Next.js and the other frameworks that you can use on Netlify. And in this, Netlify Graph automatically detects that you're working with Next.js, and it generates all the handler code for your app for the Netlify Graph interface, and it puts it in the right place. And I think, again, that's a really nice way to be able to speed up the developer experience and just get things from ideas to production really, really quickly. So I've given you a lot of features. I've given you a big rundown of quite a lot of the things that we provide on the Netlify platform that enhances the developer experience in conjunction with Next.js. And this is all yours. All of these Netlify bells and whistles are all yours, no matter what framework you deploy to Netlify. So if you're already experimenting on Netlify using another framework, you can actually just try Next.js while still being able to use all of those features that are embedded into your site and your workflow already, all those features that you know and love. So on Netlify, you don't have to be afraid to commit. You can switch and change your frameworks out and still use all of those features across your sites. So I want to show you very quickly about trying Next.js on Netlify in one click. I've got a tiny little live demo, and it should take just probably fewer than 2 minutes. You can actually do this now if you want as well. So you can go to ntl.fyi/next-on-netlify, and you can deploy a Next.js site from that starter repo. Now, I've just realized that I need to present a different part of my screen, but that's okay. I can do this now. And I'm going to go to window right here. Okay. So here is the repo that short link takes you to. And that includes a deploy to Netlify button. Now, this is the app that I showed you at the beginning with all of the different flexible rendering modes. So I'm just going to click deploy to Netlify. And I'm going to, I don't know why it wants me to log in, but that always happens. There we go. Right, so I've got my next Netlify starter. I'm going to call that 1 because I've already deployed this to Netlify already. I'm going to click save and deploy. And that's pretty much it. It's 2 clicks. And now this is going to go off to Netlify. It's going to deploy it, and it's going to detect that it's Next.js. It's starting up already. We can have a look at the logs and see what happens because I love a good log inspection. You'll see in a moment that it's installing the Next.js plugin automatically because it's detected it. And then we'll see that it will be online, live on boring no ether. Here we go. There we go. So it's detecting, it's installing the Netlify plugin automatically for me. I think a lot of people are talking about how it's blurred in the output. Am I blurred as well? I'm good. Interesting. I can see it fine on the welcome screen here. Anyway, well, we'll just go through some blurry logs, and then in about 5 to 10 seconds, we will have an app that's live. Blurry logs, you know, maybe Welcome's doing it automatically to obfuscate any information that I might leak, which isn't a thing. Anyway, here we go. I love seeing the little sparkles. Site is live. Here we go. Site is live, and here it is. I just had to click twice, and now I can go to my deploy, and my site is live now. There we go. So that's how quick. If you want to try out that app, you can go to that repo. You can deploy your own. You can fork the code, and you can try out some of the things that I showed you in the beginning. I'm just going to stop presenting, and I'm going to get my keynote slides back up again. And I'm going to play here because I seem to be a pro. I'm trying to be a pro. Window. Okay, so That's pretty much it from me in terms of everything that I wanted to talk about. And the README has everything that I did. Yes, it does. And the code has everything that I have explained to you at the beginning of the presentation. So moving on from this, and I don't know how much time we have today, given the technical difficulties that we had, but we want to talk to you. We want to see how we can help you put Next.js on Netlify. If you want a little bit more of an extracurricular approach, I would also urge you to join the Jamstack Discord. If you go to jamstack.org/Discord, there are so many people in there, so many engaged and enthusiastic people in there talking about the Jamstack, talking about building with Next.js. There's some really great resources that are posted in there all the time as well. Blog posts about Next.js, live streams about Next.js, and it's a really thriving community. You can chat with our team. I'll leave this QR code up if you want to scan that. If it's not too blurry, you can actually, if you scan that, you'll go to our contact form nice and easily where you can contact us to have a chat with us. And if you're on the recording, you can do that now as well, rather than having to find the page. And now if there's time, and I'm not sure how much time there is, but now me and Melanie can maybe hopefully answer some of your questions.
Yay! We made it back.
We made
I,
it.
for one, appreciated the blurry logs, Salma. I don't have a hard stop. Do you have a hard stop? I should ask you before I start getting into this Q&A. Do you have 10 to 15 minutes?
I have 10 minutes.
Okay, we'll move fast. I think that there's some questions in chat. There are some questions in the formal Q&A. I think that we can get to most of them. I know the answers to some of them, but not all of them. So I'm going to lean on you, Salma. And if you feel like you don't know an answer, we'll write it down and we'll get to it later. Okay, so one of the biggest questions that has the most votes in the Q&A right now is, how do you improve the website performance of a site with Next.js compared to like a standard CMS based site? And I feel like that's kind of a loaded question, but you tell me what your take on it is.
Well, my take is that using Next.js compared to what I think you're referring to is like a packaged up template, backend, front end kind of CMS like Magento or Umbraco or something. The fact that you're using Next.js and then would be calling out to external data APIs or whatever is automatically improving the performance because you have more control. Now, those kind of performance things, what I always like to say is that actually the framework is not responsible for the performance. The developer is responsible for the performance. You as a developer are responsible for educating yourself on how to create performance sites and how to create performant designs and how to look at accessibility and performance and monitor that. And so it depends, right? So it's a given that using decoupled frameworks generally helps you go faster, but you also have to bear in mind that the web is changing all the time, and it's up to you as developers to keep on top of how to build the most performance sites for your use case and the devices and the browsers that your customers are using.
Nailed it. Yeah, I do feel like this is so nuanced. Like, web performance has changed so much since I was in this space, but I remember back in the day trying to help people optimize their websites. Like, half of the game was image optimization and removing JavaScript. And that's like not framework specific, right? There's so many ways that you can do those things for yourself. So awesome. Great answer that I think is, that it depends answer, but that's the truth. Stephen James is asking, is there A/B testing support? And I believe this is a platform question, not a framework question. What do you think?
Because there is A/B testing support in Netlify. You can do split testing on Netlify. So yes, I don't think A/B testing is built into Next.js, and I think that would probably be a platform thing anyway. But yes, you can do it on Netlify.
Fantastic. Okay, here's a CMS question, Salma, that you may know the answer to. What is the best practice for marketers or marketeers who are using a CMS that want to preview their content changes in a headless site like they would expect from a monolith? And then, like, what is the expectation in terms of seeing those changes when they're published?
I wrote a blog post about this and released it this week. I'm going to post this in the chat. So this blog post is dealing with, it's kind of a framework platform, CMS agnostic way to view your content previews on a static site. Again, obviously it depends, right? So there is preview functionality built into Next.js, and I have a Next.js project that uses that Next.js preview functionality. And different CMSs will deal with that kind of thing differently as well. So I was using Contentful with Next.js and the inbuilt Next.js preview functionality. But this blog post I wrote actually deals with building a separate preview branch as a branch deploy on Netlify. I think that will probably answer your question. But again, it depends, and it will depend on what your editors can deal with as well. So some editors will be comfortable triggering a preview deploy and then navigating to that URL. Some content editors won't be very tech savvy and will need a little bit more help. So I would say it's down to the development team to work with the content editors to understand what they expect from a preview and how they can break it as little as possible.
I love this. And so I will, full disclosure, I'm in the marketing department, so I'm a marketeer. And I had this experience yesterday. We were using Sanity to deploy our website. And if I can figure out how to deploy, I trust that other people could too. It really is such an empowering experience. So yeah, probably it depends. Talk to your marketing team. Make sure they have a good how-to guide that's up to date with pictures and things. Okay, this question I didn't know the answer to, but I learned it while we were on the call. Can you have different ISR times for different props?
No, not in a single page. So if you're running get static props and you add a revalidate onto that, it's revalidating that whole page. But you can have different revalidate times on a different page, but you can't have different revalidate times on micro bits of data inside one page.
Okay, fantastic. Yes. Fascinating. Different ISR times for different pages. So some pages can be slow building, stale for longer. Let them,
and it's
let
also
them sit out there.
depending on how up to date you need that data to be, right? You have to, there's no one size fits all for all of this. And the fact that Next.js is so flexible, you have to use your brain a little bit. Next.js can't tell you what to do. It gives you the tools and you have to use them in the most sensible way that you can.
Fair enough. Okay, I do not know the answer to this one, and we've got like 2 minutes left, so I'll try to see how fast I can go, but we'll wrap pretty shortly here. Can any given route mix and match rendering modes as required for parts of the page, or is the rendering option limited to the route or the page as a whole? So can you have different rendering moments for different components?
So the answer is not yet. But I know there's some stuff in beta. I think they were doing some things with React server components and what they were calling streaming of components. Vercel released some new features in beta and preview at the conference in October, I think. It's not like standard yet, but I do believe that is coming in some of the latest next releases, I believe. I don't know when, but I know it's coming, but you can't do it yet.
Okay, wonderful. Running out of time, but rapid fire. Some of these questions are about, can you use Next.js with other frameworks? Like, can you use Next.js with PHP, or can you use Next.js with Hugo? That's not my understanding of how it works, but you tell me.
You can't, I mean, you probably can, but I probably wouldn't recommend using Next.js, trying to use it with Hugo. So Next.js is kind of a standalone thing. Obviously, you can use any API that you want. So a PHP backend or a Go backend or a Ruby backend or anything, because Next.js is just the front end that's calling out to get the data. But you wouldn't want to merge them because of the way Next.js is architected and the way it's got the serverless functions built in, it's got the page routes built in and all of that good stuff. I think to merge something would be very confusing, and you probably could do it, but I don't know why you would.
Yeah, just because you can doesn't mean it would be fun.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. There's some other questions in here about different resources. I think I'm going to look into those after we wrap and see if I can get some things out to some folks. I did see one question in chat that I did want to address directly, which is like, how is Netlify planning to support everything in the latest version of Next.js? We just saw 12.1 drop last week. And so, just if you're not familiar, we have an entire dedicated frameworks team here at Netlify. We also have an open source team that is growing. And so we're actively watching for these changes, taking feature requests, figuring out what's going to be best that needs to be added to our platform and what's covered with day one support. So we are all over this, and just expect that we're getting access to these experimental features at the same timeline that y'all are. This is what open source software is all about. And we're hustling to make sure that we have all of the in-demand things available for you as quickly as possible as they're needed. I think that's all that I have on the agenda today. Salma, do you have any parting thoughts for us before we wrap up?
Try it out. Try it out. Go and click that deploy button in 2 clicks on the example repo I gave you. Try it out. Go and play with the repository. Have some fun with it, and try integrating some of the other Netlify bells and whistles into it. And hopefully, you'll be hooked, and you won't want to do anything else.
Fantastic. Okay, well, that's it for today. Thank you, everybody, again, for being flexible with us, and we'll talk to you and see you on the web soon.